Hi friends, I hope you're doing really well today. This is Tracy Brown, and my team and I provide trauma-informed nutrition counseling to help you feel safer inside your own skin. So I want this video just to be an invitation to some curiosity and a lot of self-compassion and compassion, because I think underneath sometimes the things that trip us up is a lot of protection, and underneath that is avoidance, of our grief, and that's natural and normal. Humans don't typically there's a really awesome, uncomfortable emotion, and let's go feel that and unpack that, and not so much that we need to be reliving any kind of yuck or anything like that, but it's just really important to be able to recognize if we're saying things, and this is really common, I hear this a lot, and it's okay. So this conversation today isn't about what you're doing wrong. It's about, of course, this makes sense, and when we can get back into our values again, when we can get back into this natural human desire to want to, have a bigger purpose, than just I'll get to some okay-ish level of recovery and it won't be as bad, then I guess that's good enough and I'll stop here. And so I'm going to give you some examples. A lot of times people will come to me and it's like, I don't really know what I want to talk about today, and maybe I'm kind of done with this. I don't know. And then really I just start looking at, I would just give people some indicators of recovery of a level you don't really get triggered by other people's diet stuff. And there's a big capacity in your system to where if you do have stress, you're able, again, to have enough comfort level with your emotions that you can feel them, experience it, witness it, provide a lot of compassion for it, know who and what to reach out for to co-regulate to, and ride the waves, and it doesn't really impact your food too much. Now, of course, there are going to be circumstances where you're so much in flight or there's a lot of grief or disappointment or something that, your appetite's going to be wonky. That's okay. That doesn't last long usually. But when you're finding yourself back in that whole, I don't have time, just fear about getting your needs met again, feeling like it doesn't really matter and you can just survive the way it is, it's good enough, you're back in defensive strategy, okay, and in avoidance of your experience. So let's say somebody comes and they're like, I don't know, and then we just kind of look at, I give some people, if this happened, if that happened, what would you feel inside? Would you be able to have a lot of witnessing to it and not go immediately into shutting down your voice or, I can list a whole bunch of symptoms. Most of the time people say, oh yeah, I'm not quite there yet. Come a long way. And I think the reality is that I'm feeling so much better than I used to, that total just imprisonment and bondage. I'm so not there, and I'm here, and it's so much better. But there's some places that still feel a little, I don't know, I just kind of feel heavy inside sometimes, or worried, or and that's a sign to me that there's a level of afraid to go to the next step, because the next step is going to take another level of uncomfortable. And when we've already done some uncomfortable, we don't really want to do more. And that's natural. It's totally acceptable, but we're always going to be challenged. We're always going to have some challenge to onion peel, if that makes sense. So we want to get to the place where it's all challenge is okay, here's another level. Here's another layer that I'm getting the opportunity to be curious about. And usually, boom, that takes us to the next place of how we're using some subtle food or body stuff, or maybe just, it's really easy, especially when you've made the leap to all right, I'm handing over my good dieter card here to learn how to be in more authentic relationship with people. That means you can't pull that card back out. And being able to really know who you are and how to communicate with people in other ways besides diet culture. Sometimes that's the next step for people, and recognizing that there's kind of hard both ways, right? And being willing to go to the next stage of that. All right. Another example would be, I just can't accept this body. Let's say that you're somebody watching this and you've come a long way with your hunger fullness journey, and navigating some health challenges possibly with general nutrition and overall good self-care, those kind of things. But you're recognizing that, I love being able to eat, what I want when I want, and of course listening within the bounds of what the body is asking for, and very intentional emotional eating if you're doing that, and maybe you got some good health practices going on that you're really happy about, but it's not changing the body. And then that puts people in a level of distress of why aren't all my intuitive eating and health behaviors making my body change? And that's where we want to get to. The truth is, there's a part of me that's I'm not going there. I'm not accepting this. You fill in the blank with the body part or whatever that is, or aging or whatever. And that's your opportunity to be wow, that stance is really, there's something between me and the peace I'm seeking. What is this? And again, we can be a witness to wow, there's that defensiveness. What do bellies mean? And if you really were to sit with that and be a witness to that, what's happening there? And almost always people get oh yeah, I remember. And they get kind of either a few instances or one main instance where it's the lesson was that you have to be careful. And you can't have a belly or a body like this or whatever body part, because the next awful thing will happen. And it's usually when we witness these things without context, without bigger picture of all the circumstances. And it typically happens when we're young, probably below 25, and we don't have all the resources we need to navigate and process that. It becomes A plus B happened to them, so A plus B will equal C for me too. And we just got to dig a little deeper into how are you in now time different? And what are your options now? And just go in there. So I just want to encourage you, if you're finding a place where you're I don't want to go any further, there's more discomfort here, I don't want to accept this, whether it's your, we talked about earlier this week's video, your energy needs. Here now we're talking about some compassion and at least a willingness to be neutral or respectful of the journey you've been on. Because sometimes we end up in bodies, through our recovery process, or maybe even after, where it's maybe these body changes wouldn't have happened with all the disordered eating. But here we are, just like anybody else who has been through some stuff. Maybe you haven't had a lot of adversity, but you're in a life-changing accident or, some kind of loss. And you recognize that we do all kinds of things to try to survive it when we don't have the resources to maybe do it in a really helpful, holistic way. We would have if we would have known better. And so that's where I'm offering you all today is it's easy to stay in the defensive mode of staying in fear of potential future disappointments again, or just chronic fear or whatever it is about the next stage of, let's say, if you're going from less body hatred and you want to go to neutrality, or even, wow, who says that body was ever bad? Oh, I learned that because that's all the programming that the people who raised me had too. Of course, that's all they could offer me. And it was hard and scary and not big picture because they don't have that either. Got it. But I do now. And, how is that really not congruent with the skills I have now? That level of maybe harshness or fear or avoidance or judgmentalness or self-hatred or whatever's happening. The invitation today is to how did I get here? Let's give some honoring to the ways in which I had to survive, and how true is it, all these stories now, and what do I have now that's also different? So thank you all so much for watching. Again, I'm just hoping that this is a video that encourages you to look at your, like, I'm not doing that part. I'm not going to be uncomfortable anymore. I've had enough. I'm not going there. I'm not doing that. That's protection, obviously. You can feel it in your system. As I go like this, you can tell, like, body acceptance is, let's say body, like, I don't want to hate this body, but I don't know how to, like, it feels like a failure to like it. You see that here, and you're here, and back here's everything negative you were ever taught, and like, probably almost all of it, if not all of it, was untrue. Just see this as protection, not as like resistance to like wanting to have full recovery, not as anything, again, judgmental, but just like, oh, there's those arms crossed, I'm not doing it kind of stance I'm having right now. Like, how is that serving me? What's that protecting, or what's the function? And then see what you find next. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.